Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shajjad Hussain. I am an architect and a PhD candidate in the University of Évora, Portugal. The title of my presentation is Mapping the Literature Through Digital Humanities Protocol, Decoding the Morphology of a Historic Settlement. I start sharing my screen now.
Sure, thanks.
I hope you can see.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So today's presentation is based on one part of my doctoral research. My research focuses on methodology based on mapping in order to identify the morphology of historic settlement. Literary cartographic mapping is one main approach that I am currently working on. I am going to quickly summarize the key ideas in next 4 slides and then present a case study in Bangladesh to demonstrate how the idea is adopted. Every moment becomes history when the next moment arrives, but be it in architecture, city, culture, or even landscape. But no particular moment is lost forever. Rather, imprints of moments remain in layers, deposited one onto another, perhaps waiting to be decoded. The imprints are cast both in tangible and intangible forms, such as landscape, architecture, toponym, history, story, memory, folklore, and other literatures. A historic site, landscape, or city merged in layers underneath a currently live urban settlement is a very interesting subject to explore, especially when the only available input is literature and the practical site itself. Khalifatabad in Bangladesh, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and 3 other historic townships of the same founder offer a fascinating opportunity to proceed with a literary cartographic approach to identify the artifacts, some very precisely and some within the scope of imprecise geography. According to the literary heritage, reference to historian Satish Chandra, Dr. Najimuddin Ahmed, and few others' works in this area, the artifacts are widely distributed along a route of 150 kilometers and branch routes. There is neither any existing map nor concrete visual or spatial evidence about it, except the literature, text, and memory. Artifacts of these townships are hidden in existing villages and urban areas. The interdisciplinary method to perform the research combines very different sources, such as satellite imagery analysis, visiting the places and documenting, interviewing research persons, consulting literary heritage, and turning them into spatial data, finally data mapping with GIS application. In short, superimposing all the layers in spatial format. The expected output is visual illustration in the form of interpretative maps, with an aim to understand the historic township's spatial morphology. So here, this is a key diagram and a graphical abstract of my project. I am going to place a small version of this diagram and code number in most of the coming slides so that I can refer to a certain layer when I show something or talk about something. Most of the studies and digital humanities projects regarding mapping literature or literary cartography have linguistic approach. Usually start with a corpus of selected theme of interest and end up into finding analytical results with visual illustrations and geographic reference. The reference can sometimes be very precise and sometimes be quite broad, depending on literature. In my case, it is a bit different approach. Looking for information in the text, not just finding any concept or pattern or comparing themes over a period of time that appear in the text. I try to find information about specific stuff turn them into spatial data to place them in layers in real locations. I am consulting a mix of journal articles, books, database, and map collections. Reference to Queiroz 2015 and Piatti 2008. I have adopted close reading options because many of my literature are printed material in different languages. Some of them are rare books in PDFs made from scanned images. These texts have various period of publication, with the oldest one in 1914. Therefore, I am leaning away from most literary cartographic projects towards virtual archaeology to explore spatially oriented historical questions, while literature remains the prime source of information. So it should follow this diagonal line in this diagram. Let's go back to the reference site now. The UNESCO World Heritage Site Kalifatabad is located in the southwest part of Bangladesh beside Bhairab River. The bottommost dot in the last diagram is that. It is a historic mosque city of Bagarhat district. Um, it is part of dispersed settlement now. The current city center is few kilometers away, also on the bank of the same river. The key person behind founding this township was the ruler and Muslim saint Ulugh Khan Jahan. He built most of the structures in famous architectural style with a Turkish origin. Only few architectural structures, locations, and few lakes are identified in the official government documentation, which results in this map prepared 30 years ago on the left-hand side. The right-hand side map is a schematic. The actual extent of the city of Kalifatabad should be much larger because there are more items to be included from other locations. Among the tangible architectural heritage, at least 10 working mosques and a few number of tombs and residences, meditation chamber, ghat, and legendary lakes and cultural landscapes are found in the survey. There are quite a few unidentified mounds and sites. On the right-hand side, among the intangibles, there are performing arts, worships, rituals and beliefs, weekly bazaars, as well as biological and communal heritage. Some are institutionalized, protected, and preserved. Some are not. Elements from the above that have georeference were considered for mapping. Among the intangibles, the pictures in the bottom, the crocodile and its cultural significance at local and national level is very profound. The original marsh crocodile's history is 600 years old. The last descendant died 1 year ago. At present, there are only two crocodiles living in the lake next to the tomb of Khan Jahan. They were imported. So, containing all these tangibles and intangibles, the extended township is located beside the Bhairab River, which I traced back because some portion of the historic river is dead and absent from the contemporary national mapping of rivers. While tracing the river, I used to have the references from satellite images as well as the text that records how the river goes from point A to point B and merge with another and produce a big bend on the west of C railway station, things like that. I find the coordinates of the place names, railway lines, bridges, and stations that are still present to use them in the map for reference. In addition to resources of online maps and satellite imageries, for more information and authentication, site survey was performed at different reference points. For example, the, this tiny bridge on the connecting canal in the middle of this image. Along with photographic survey, I took video as well as interview of local research persons. Some of them are actual witnesses to historic artifacts and their locations that are still visible in their younger age. Not anymore now. Mm, Also, I took notes and prepared on-site conceptual drawings and GIS coordinates for the existing structures, hidden connections. There are some ruins that are impossible to find from published maps and satellite images. The hierarchy of land use and geological feature, topography, and local agricultural practice were surveyed and studied to find out the relationships between landscape and the river, from high to low lands, from public to private spaces. The relationships illustrated in this section is valid for major rivers and large canals. I have found some elements from field survey which contribute to my mapping and hypothesis of Khalifatabad. For example, there is evidence of historic highway made of brick with very unusual size, identical to the bricks used in preserved architecture of that period. But as you can see in this photograph, that it is now hidden under a newly constructed road. So I recorded the coordinates and drew the entire length of the highway in GIS application. Another example. There is a very interesting story of battle on elephants between the troops of Khan Jahan and troops of another Maog king, Karnoli. It is a very well-known non-fiction among local people for hundreds of years, as well as described in this book. The winning of this battle marked the start of the reign of Khan Jahan and the northern extent of his territory. From then, the name of the place was Piljanga. Pil means elephant, Janga means battle. So at present, there are dispersed settlements, some historic temples, and fields and schools. This is the third example, and I think the last one. According to eminent historian Mitra, the Buddhist statue was found by Khan Jahan 600 years ago while he was excavating the crocodile's water tank. He thought it belonged to the Hindu community and he returned to them and allocated a separate land for them in the location of this temple in the photograph, just outside his territory, Khalifatabad. Therefore, it perhaps marks the southernmost extent of the historic settlement. This statue, interestingly, possesses elements of both religion, Buddhist and Hindus, such as trident and snakes. They are motifs from Hindu religion, but the person of the statue is Buddha. Therefore, it actually complies with the well-established history of successive practice of Buddhism and Hinduism in this locality before the Muslim saint Khan Jahan came. So, having all the information from many different sources, turning them into spatial data, placing them in layers, mapping and merging them, we arrive at a much larger extent of the historic settlement. All the points and lines and objects in this map can be pinpointed by coordinates, and therefore they have precise locations. Perhaps it is possible to extract more information from the landscape that help to build up a comprehensive picture of the morphological footprint of the historic city, even if they remains in the domain of imprecise geography. Since the geography is predominantly a part of delta and close to the sea, therefore the land is subject to tidal transformation. Therefore, if we try to imagine the active places of the historic township, we must exclude the lowlands that are inundated by water every year and not suitable for use of the then urban area. So I took help from Google Earth Engine satellite imagery for last 35 years and topography analysis in QGIS. Please note that the UNESCO World Heritage Site is quite a small in the middle of this slide, of this satellite image. The next slide shows a different map of this area. This map is prepared by GIS unit of LGET, Local Government Engineering Department of Bangladesh. It depicts all the details of infrastructure and landform. We remove all the clutters except the rivers, canals, and current settlements. remove the settlement, and we only look at the rivers and canals. Now, these rivers, they have water running all the year round and entitled to tidal flow because the sea is not very far, around 75 kilometers away. Um, but the canals, they are more or less one way and regularly fed by the river, but not in dry season. Now, if we zoom into the scale of that previous satellite image we saw a few slides ago, we can see that the non-green area of the satellite image coincide with the canal network. Therefore, the green areas as seen in the satellite image are highlands with big permanent trees. This fact is also evident in a video of satellite images for 35 years. I'm always saying 35 years because satellite images for this area for that duration has been made publicly available thanks to Google. This is extracted from Google Earth Engine. Please note that while the appearance of highland remains constantly green, on the contrary, the lowland area changes appearance at least 2 times a year. In the rainy season, it becomes wet and green. In dry seasons, it becomes brown.
5 minutes.
Here, okay. Here are two pictures to have an idea. On the left, lowland is covered by seasonal crops. On the right hand side, the highland with permanent structure and tall trees. Let us examine the age condition between these two types of land. There are a series of interventions such as KMZ format file, DEM elevation data, GPX file to extract the spatial data from satellite imagery and produce usable contour maps in QGIS. Uh, we can see now the age is quite defined by the concentrating contour lines. Low areas are brown and the high areas are greenish. The maximum height difference between these two types of land is 10 meters. Bird's eye view is also another option for better perception. It has been created in 3D map view in QGIS using the hillside elevation data just beside the urban area next to the river. The white highland is the site of Kalifatabad. And finally, there is another layer of filtration. The place name database file available at Diva GIS portal offers nearly 34,000 entries along with coordinates and associated administrative level for the whole country. The database file is converted into CSV and sorted and filtered for case study area, which brought down the number of entries to 198. They are placed in a separate layer in QGIS. And now only the place names with close vicinity to the heritage site and having relevance with references to literature are considered and mapped to understand the geographic extent of the historic Kalifatabad city. So, from the previous slides, the georeferences of tangible and intangible heritage, geological feature, landscape, century-old cultural and agricultural practice, evidence from artifact, nonfiction, photography, local witness and historians, satellite imagery and topographic analysis, and finally the relevant place names, all placed in different layers, superimposed each on top of another. And here is the comprehensive understanding of morphological footprint of the historic settlement. Of course, this is just one possibility of graphic representation where all the elements that are tangible, they have precise locations, the others are expressed with imprecise geography. Archaeological excavation and random discovery by general people are still going on. Therefore, I believe in near future, there is more scope to enhance this map. Thank you.
Thank you, Shajjad. That was fascinating. I'm just going to